Hello everybody and welcome back. Our project today is a fiberglass frame and hatch, and this will be going on a holiday trailer, but you'd be able to use it on a boat or wherever you want that you want an exterior hatch in. So the first thing we're doing is making a framework. Our opening that we're wanting will be 22 by 18, so I'm just using some melamine board. The fiberglass comes off it easily and stuff, so we just put some pocket holes in it and screws, and we'll screw that together. And that is our opening. So the opening size that you want to end up with on the frame is the internal size there. And what we're going to have is it's actually going to be it's a rebate frame, so it's going to have a 1-inch lip on the inside that the hatch will lay up against on, and then it's going to come out 3/4 of an inch, and then have a 2-inch layout. You can see a little diagram there, and the rebate in it. So it's a 1-inch will be the internal that the hatch cover will set up against. And I'm just using pins to pin this on. So this is a one-time framing. If you're going to do more hatches than just one, you may want to use some different products. But this is a one of, so I'm just using scraps that I have. And there it is there. And when you're doing your fiberglass layup, always remember that you're doing it in a mirror image. So the bottom portion is what you're going to see. And what you have to do is at the top here, we're rounding it over with a 1/4-inch round over bit. Fiberglass, whenever you're going around anything, it does not like a 90. Matter of fact, it will not do a 90. So you have to round that over. The same thing here on the bottom. So what I've done is I'm just using some wall filler, and showing you that I have a piece of arborate that I've just rounded off the corner, and that gives us our cove on the bottom. So we'll have it rounded at the top and coved at the bottom. And the reason I use this is because it dries fast. And what I'll do is I'll give this 2 coats. So I'll just use my finger to thin it out and get some of the hard particles out. And then we'll, once this dries, we'll go over it a 2nd coat, and then they'll dry. And you also want to take, if you're using a coarse open grain product like the melamine is, you want to make sure that you fill all that voids on the side so the fiberglass doesn't go into it. And after it's been done, I've just have a dowel there, and I've wrapped it in sandpaper, and I'll just smooth all the edges all the way around. And once we're done smoothing it all off, we'll just give it a coat of paint. And what you want to use is a gloss paint. This is just a latex, and this will get 2 coats as well. And the gloss paint will just help the fiberglass come off the form. Some people call this a plug. So there it is, painted. And now what you have to do is wax it. And what I use is just a floor wax. There's special release waxes and other waxes that you can do. What I'm trying to show you in this video is we're actually trying to keep it a bit simpler so that the average homeowner can do some fiberglassing projects without going out and buying a whole bunch of equipment. So I'll give this 3 coats. So this be coated on. I'll let it dry and then give it a buff, and then give 2 more coats after that. Because this is a crucial step, because you want to be able to remove this plug from your fiberglass layup. And once that's dry, we'll just give it a bump and buff. There it is, just min wax, floor wax. And like I was saying earlier, it's really important that you fill the voids in the melamine board and that was filled with putty and sanded off smooth and then painted. And if you have any nail holes or joints, what you can actually do is you can take the wax and fill them. Just smooth them off, and the wax will fill in that void. This is a good thing to take some time on when you're waxing. You really want to make sure you have a good coat here. You don't want to have to do all that fiberglassing in it and not remove. So now we're putting on the gel coat, and it's been all buffed off and smooth and cleaned up. I've got a couple of open joints there on the side, as you see in front of you. I'm not worried about that too much because this unit will be sanded on the outside and painted again. So I'm showing you the gel coat we'll be coating on, and the gel coat has to be non-waxed. Gel coat comes in waxed and non-waxed. The wax coating would be for a top coat that you're going to spray on your finished product. But this is coming out of a form, so we want it non-waxed, and I'll be putting on 2 heavy coats of this. This is like really heavy Devon cream, so I'm just using a chip brush there, and we'll coat that on. It'll lay out quite nice over the frame. Your manufacturing will give you an idea how much catalyst you have to add to it, and I'm just mixing up the catalyst and the gel coat. Gel coat has to be activated with catalyst. And make sure you scrape the sides. You can see that I'm scraping the sides really well, and that's to make sure that it's all mixed. If it's not mixed with the catalyst, it won't harden. I like to count to 100 while I'm mixing these small portions. Just make sure that you get it all mixed in. And now I'll just take my chip brush and go all the way along and put a liberal coat on it. And this will be in a place that you want to make sure that you have enough gel coat is on your bottom corners. So I'll go over that 2 or 3 times. And once I get the product on the surface that we're trying to coat, it's a good idea to go from the outside to the inside so that you're not dragging the material over the top. You can see in the back there, I'll come to the edge and then I'll go back. And you want to keep on pulling the product towards the center of your board. And once you get it applied, and on small pieces, it's good just to dab it. So what I do is just dab it on top and then on the sides as well. Once I get the product dispersed onto it, and then you can smooth it out. Because there's resin, polyester resin, and fiberglass going over top of this, you're not trying to get a really smooth product. You're just trying to get where the smoothness and everything will come from is on the face. The biggest thing to get in your mindset is that you're working backwards. So what we're applying here, this is actually the back portion of the face. So just get the product on and drag it towards the center, and then go back out and drag it back to the center again, back and forth. And I'll follow this all the way around. And it's important to get right down into that bottom as well. You can see that it'll fill any imperfections. And this will take about 45 minutes to an hour to dry, and then I'll put a second coat on it. And that'll make sure that it's going to give us a good base coat. And when this comes off, like I said, it's not the color that we're wanting, so I'll be able to sand it down and give it a paint. Make sure that you have a respirator on and you're wearing nitrile gloves. And if you do get any of this on you, you can clean up with acetone. You don't want to put acetone on you too much. It's hard on your liver. So it's better you wear latex or nitrile. We use nitrile. You see how we're just gathering it towards the center. You go from the ends and bring it to the center. And that just stops you from dragging the product over the edge. And we'll continue all the way around. We get all the gel coat down, and it's sat for a couple hours. And now we'll be getting ready to lay on the mat. So what we use is mat, cloth, and mat, and that's classified as one unit. We'll be putting on 2 units, so they'll be, and I pre-cut them all to the corners that they overlap. So the bottom is the mat, and then we lay over the fiberglass cloth, and then mat over top that again. And we'll be putting 2 units like that, so it'll be 6 pieces in total around this frame, and we'll be overlapping the corners, and we'll be filling in between. So what I'm going to do is just go through all the materials that you need. So you need your resin, which is in the can. We have a chip brush here. Short bristle too. When you pick them up, get them as short as possible. What I use here is a mini roller cage, and that can be used to hold in the corner and to push it into the corner, and a small roller. Now this is a fiberglass steel roller. It's called a bubble roller. Once you put more than one lamination on, you're going to want use that because it'll bring them together and get all the bubbles and air out. The resin, and we have some acetone in a container because you're going to want to clean all your tools as you go along. I was just feeling the temperature of the resin. I have a hot box, and we keep our resin in a hot box before we start. And air dry is the very last coat. We add some air dry to it, and what that is wax, and it'll stop it from being sticky. And a couple of cloths to clean it up. Make sure you have that. Scissors, and then as you're cutting it, you're going to want to be cleaning them off in acetone. And the most important thing, especially with fiberglass, is some nitrile gloves. So there's some nitrile gloves, and that's pretty well all you need in your mat. So I'm starting off with about 3 ounces, and just added my catalyst to it. I add about 20 drops, and so we just mix it up. And you'll notice whenever you're doing your mixing, it's sort of a deep blue, and as the catalyst gets activated into it, it'll start to turn colors. And be very careful with the catalyst. It heats up to about 1200 degrees. You don't want to get that on your hands and scratch your eyes. Beware of that all the time when you're handling the catalyst. It'll blind you. So mix it up, keep it away from you, and try not to create too many splashes. And just give it a really good stir. And make sure that you're using a respirator with this as well. I'm inside the shop right now, and I got both doors open and got the big fans on, moving some air around. So you see that I don't have a respirator on. It's because I've got lots of airflow, and so it's been about 2 hours for the gel coat to dry, and we had 2 coats on it. And now what we're doing is just applying the resin. This is basically just to give it a base coat. Once you have the base coat on, you want to put your mat on first, and I lay it on the top edge where I want to go. And now you want to dab. You're not painting with resin, you're dabbing. So that's why you use the chip brush. Get some on, and you'll notice that it'll go translucent. You want to saturate it to get rid of all the white. So I'll just keep dabbing it on, and the purpose is trying to get the entire mat wet, and then we can actually push it into its form. But you can see how it's wrapping around the corners nicely, and you just keep dabbing it on. People have tried to paint it on. You don't want to do that. You'll pull out all the fibers and everything. It's okay to readjust it as you go too. Once you get it wet, and if it's pulling away, just pull it up and move it to where you need it to be. I'm trying to get it as close to the inside edge as well, so there's not as much sanding and cutting. But it's pretty hard to get it perfectly where you want it. And then once you get that all saturated in place, then I'll take my scissors and cut the corners. You don't want to try and bulk it around the corner, it'll just pop up. So I'll just cut right down to the bottom, and then that can lay down the side. And then on the consecutive coats that are matching up to that, then I'll cut the other way so that the overlaps are reversed to each other. So just keep saturating it. And this is a polyester resin. If you want something super strong, you'd be able to do this in epoxy, but the polyester is fine for this. And the epoxy is the identical procedure. The only thing that's changing is the type of resin. Once I get that all saturated in, then I'll just give it a push into the corners, and I'll be and you can see that I use my roller cage arm, and I can hold that into the corner while I flatten it down. And what that does is it holds it into place so that you're not dragging it back and forth. So the first coat that I do will get the most amount of resin, and then as we go with consecutive layers, and we'll be using the steel roller, it'll actually pull the resin up into the other layers. You can see I'm pushing across into the corner. They have different sizes of rollers. There's a couple that are smaller than this one, and I would have used my smaller one, but I'm doing some work down at the boat, so some tools weren't in the shop. And what I'm trying to do is just smooth it out here, make sure there's no air in it, and you can go back and forth. And you want to, every time you use that, you want to go back and put it in your acetone, and then I'll keep it moving. So just follow all the way through here, and go all the way around with all the consecutive coats. Just give the base a wet out first, and we can layer mat around it. So I usually would go all the way around with this mat, but because this is a demonstration, we'll be just doing this corner, and then I can cut into it in the other corner. And I've got all my pieces pre-cut, save some time. Whenever you start to, I'm just going to be moving this pre-cut pieces over to the other side, so it's closer to me, so I'm not reaching over the resin fiberglass. So we'll just be there we go. So you just want to match it up to where it's going to go. You can push it on with your hands. like I said, with the chip brush, all you're doing is dabbing. You just won't want to get that that mat wet. You have about, on a size of resin like this, you only want to mix small amounts. People mix way too much for the jobs that they'll do an awful lot of times. Like I said, I'm only using about 3 ounces at a time, and that gives you about 12 to 15 minutes of working time. And then once it starts to go thick and starts to jelly, you have to throw it away. You can't reactivate it or start it. And what I've done is off camera, I haven't showed you, but I have about 4 of these containers poured out with the sizes that I need. So as one goes off, I can just add the catalyst to it and continue, so that I'm not pouring out and measuring. I know exactly what I need. You can see there I cut the corner the other way so that it cross laps. So now the corner has laps on the glass 2 different ways. We'll just continue to dab that all through and to get the product down. You can see that it goes out beyond our form. That won't be a problem. We'll cut that off. We have a nice edge to follow on the top and bottom. So I'll show you the procedures that we do to trim it to size. So this is referred to as a layup over the frame. So we're doing a layup here, and it's important to get enough resin down that you can lay the other part into it. Now we have mat down in the 2 corners, and now we'll lay the cloth over top of it. And the cloth will give you a lot of strength, but the mat is nice as your first coat because you can really push it in. So I'm just getting the air out there, and especially you really want to use one of these bubble rollers if you're going to go with more than 1 layer. If you notice, I'm going back and forth on it, and what you're basically doing is bonding the 2 units together, or how many units you're using. Once we get to 2 or 3 pieces on, you'll notice that it's almost like a foam that comes to the top, and that's actually air. And what you're doing is you're pushing the air out of the fiberglass units. And I'm just using my flat to get it right into the corner. And this works really good. And if you're trying to get around, lay something and your mat's moving on you, I can actually take this and hold it while I'm using my roller, so it's not being moved around. And now we'll just lay up our mat. Push that down. With mat, you always have to add a little bit. It seems to want to move a lot. So it's you always want to hang it over. But like I said, if you got it down and you're not happy where it is, just pull it up while it's wet, and you can reposition it in the area you want. And you can see now how I'm dabbing it right into the corner, and it's not taking as much resin because it's actually picking up the resin from the bottom sheet that you laid down. So, and I'll just dab that all the way through, and then we'll cut out our corners. Sorry about my arms, but you can see that you have to lay them over. Here we go. And now we'll just go back with our bubbler, and you want to push towards the corner, and don't pull it out from you. Push it into it. If you're to roll outward, it's going to pull it away from the corner. And the important thing is to get it pushed right into that corner. You can see how it looks like it's becoming one. If you notice the air creates like a foam on top. Where the two will work, so I can hold that into the corner and then roll the other way, and that's not pulling it up into the corner. This resin, as well as non-waxed, you got to make sure that it's non-waxed. If you had a waxed resin, it'd be hard. I mean, you wouldn't be able to laminate all the layers. It's a non-laminating resin. Some companies sell a laminating resin. This is just a normal polyester resin, in general purpose. Notice I'm constantly going back to that bottom corner. You want to make sure that it's pushed in tight in there. And you notice when I push in, there's resin pushing out. That's exactly what you want to see. You want to get those layers bonded together. And now we've gone all the way around. So something like this, if you're wondering, like I said, I edited it, but this takes about an hour and a half to go all the way around with your multi-layers. Same principle, get down into that corner, make sure that it's the amount of catalyst that you add to the resin will determine on how fast it kicks. That's how it cures. It's called a kick. And you don't want to add too much catalyst to it because you need working time, especially when you're doing a form work like this. And if you're doing multi-frames, this would be your first plug, and then you would pull this out and then fiberglass from the other side and actually make a fiberglass reverse frame, and that would be a plug, and then you can make several of these. But what we're doing here is a single frame unit, so the frame will be destroyed when we pull this off, especially because it's a melamine board. It doesn't have a lot of integrity to it, but it works well with fiberglass. You can pull right off. So this is our final mat that we're going around doing. Just let you follow along so you can see it going down. We're just on our final passes. So we've got 2 units on both. And you can see I'm taking my time to push in the corner. This is a common mistake. That's why I'm spending so much time showing you the corner being done. People will roll out their mat and they're pulling it away from the corner, and you'll have big voids in it. But you're going to take your time on the corner. And don't worry about the stuff that's hanging beyond the frame. That'll be all trimmed off. And I'm just going back and forth on it. And then on the final one, we give it a bit of a harder roll. And what you want to do is get all the air bubbles that are trapped in between the products. And once I get that done, then I'll cut some layout that will go between the corners so that the frame thickness is the same all the way around, because on the corners we've layered up quite a bit. So I have some pieces cut, and I want the frame to be the same density. You see we're laying this in here. And I'll be putting 3 units in between and cutting them up to where it comes to the edge. And this will make sure that you have the same thickness all the way around the frame. If I didn't do that, I'd have big bulky corners, and it wouldn't be the same all the way around. So we'll just get that down, and then we'll put another layer of mat over top of that, and it's the same procedure. Just get your resin in there with a chip brush, and then roll it out. Okay, we're all completed, and I'll just do a visual on it to make sure that it's all wetted out and we don't have any air pockets or anything. I'm just checking on the corners there, and the overlaps. And I've built up layers in between the 2 corners, so you can see it's still wetted out. So we'll leave this overnight before we pull it off the plug. And you see how it's all laid in nicely. Looks like a mess now, but when you cut it all out and you reverse it, then you'll be able to see your finished product on the other side. So we'll just let this sit overnight and then go to cut it out. So here we are the next day out on the workbench. What I have is a 4.5 inch mini grinder, and it has a diamond blade on it. And these are used for a lot of people use them as a masonry blade for cutting tile and bricks and stuff. They work great on fiberglass. And what the water does, it'll keep the blade cool, and it'll eliminate a lot of dust. So I just use a jug, and I actually have a bit of soap in the water as well too. I find that it helps it to cut. And you can just run it right along the wood, and that'll give you a nice straight edge to it. Sometimes you have to go a couple of times so that you can get a visual of where your edge is, and then I'll just follow right along. You can use a diamond router bit too if you have one, but these blades work great, and they're inexpensive now. So I've done the outside and the inside, as you can see, and now I'm just going to use a couple of flat glazing bars, we call them. They're actually beekeeper's bar for taking out the honey and honeycombs out of beehives. But they work good, they're nice and flat. And there we go, we popped it all out, and there's the framework. And now we'll just get that wipe off, get any of the paint that's stuck to it, or any of the filler. And then we got that popped off and cut off. What we'll do is aerosol all the sides of it. We want to take off all the sharp edges and round over the corners as well. And this is our framework. for our hatch. So we'll be applying our hatch on the next episode, so please do follow along. We'll be building the hatch and putting the hinges and the handle on and stuff, and applying it to the holiday trailer. We'll be using a Bondo on the back portion of the frame and mounting it to the side of the trailer. Well, thanks a lot for watching. Please watch the second episode of the completion of this. And if you like these videos, please subscribe. It all helps. The